Lesson number 23, Exercises in Adjustments. Hello guys, kumusta mga kaibigan? In this lesson, we are going to learn examples of adjustments. The following are the adjustments on March 31, 2017. Please read these transactions. You may pause the video to give you more time reading them. Let's analyze, journalize, and post our adjustments. After posting, we are going to prepare the adjusted trial balance. Our first adjustment is to record the rent expense as of the end of the month. We have 15,000 prepaid rent. And divided by 3 months, every month we are going to recognize rent expense equivalent to 5,000 pesos. So for this month, as of March 31, we need to recognize the expired portion of the prepaid rent. In order to analyze the transaction, we are going to use again the accounting equation. Okay, let us analyze this transaction. Prepaid rent decreased by 5,000 pesos because a portion of this asset, take note, prepaid rent is an asset, a portion of this prepaid rent has already expired. The expired portion of this prepaid rent is now called rent expense. That is why we have an increase in rent expense equivalent to 5,000 pesos. Again, we are going in our analysis, we are going to relate the increase in expense to owner's equity. That is why you can see negative rent expense increase, and the effect of an increase in expense to owner's equity is decrease. Okay, this is our analysis. Prepaid rent decreased by 5,000 pesos because a portion of the prepaid rent had already expired. The expired portion pertains to the rent expense. That is why we have an increase in rent expense with a corresponding decrease in owner's equity. To journalize the transaction, first we write the date, March 31. Then we debit rent expense for 5,000 pesos because rent expense increased. We credit prepaid rent for 5,000 pesos because prepaid rent decreased. Write a description to record the rent expense as of the end of the month. By the way, if you would notice, we are now on page number 2 of our journal. Do you see the page number 2 on the upper right corner of our general journal? So it means we are now on the second page of the journal. To post the debit entry, in our rent expense ledger, we write the date, March 31, the description to record the rent expense as of the end of the month, posting reference J2 because we are now on the second page of the journal, J2. Under the debit column, we write the amount, 5,000 pesos. In the balance section under the debit column, we also write 5,000 pesos. After posting the debit entry, we write the posting reference 5500, the account code for rent expense. Let us post our credit entry. Credit to prepaid rent for 5,000 pesos. In the prepaid rent ledger, we write the date, 31. We write the description to record the rent expense as of the end of the month. Posting reference J2. Under the credit column, we write the amount, 5,000 pesos. In the balance section, under the debit column, we write 10,000 pesos. How did we get 10,000 pesos? We have a previous debit balance of 15,000 pesos minus 5,000 credit. So as of March 31, the prepaid rent ledger has a debit balance of only 10,000 pesos. After posting the credit entry, we write the posting reference, 1400, the account code for prepaid rent. Our next adjustment pertains to the remaining office supplies at the end of the month, which is 200 pesos. We have 3,200 pesos office supplies purchased. So we deduct 200 office supplies left unused at the end of the month. It means we had used 3,000 supplies for the month. Used supplies is called supplies expense. How are we going to analyze this transaction? Office supplies decreased by 3,000 pesos because a portion of the office supplies has already been used. Office supplies is an asset. Used office supplies is no longer an asset. That is why we are going to decrease office supplies by 3,000 pesos. Supplies expense increase 3,000 pesos. This pertains to the use office supplies. A consumed or used office supplies is called supplies expense. So again, office supplies decreased by 3,000 pesos. Supplies expense increased by 3,000 pesos with a corresponding decrease in owner's equity. Now let us journalize this transaction. To journalize our second adjustment, we don't have to write the date. All adjustments are normally recorded at the end of the month. So the end of the month for March is March 31. We had already written the date in our first journal entry. So just write the debit entry supplies expense for 3,000 pesos because supplies expense increased. Then credit of office supplies for 3,000 pesos because office supplies decreased. The description, to adjust the office supplies at the end of the month. Let us post the debit entry. In the supplies expense ledger, we write the date, March 31. We write the description, to adjust the office supplies at the end of the month. Posting reference, J2. Under the debit column, we write 3,000 pesos. In the balance section under the debit column, we write 3,000 pesos. After posting the debit entry, we write the posting reference, 5400, the account code for supplies expense. Let us post the credit entry, office supplies, 3,000 pesos. In the office supplies ledger, we write the date, 31. The description, to adjust the office supplies at the end of the month. Posting reference, J2. Under the credit column, we write the amount, 3,000 pesos. In the balance section under the debit column, we write 200 pesos. How did we get 200 pesos? We have a previous balance, debit balance of 3,200 minus 3,000 pesos credit. As of March 31, office supplies has a debit balance of 200 pesos. After posting the credit entry, we write the posting reference, 1300, the account code for office supplies. Next adjustment, the business completed 75% of the marketing consulting engagement contracted on March 20. On March 20, the business received 40,000 pesos cash from a client, but the service has not yet been completed. On March 31, 75% of the service has already been rendered or completed. So it means the business will recognize 30,000 pesos revenue or income. Remember, income is only recognized when a service has already been completed. So how are we going to analyze this transaction? Unearned revenue decreased by 30,000 pesos because the 30,000 pesos or the 75% completed service is no longer an unearned revenue. It's already an earned revenue, or we can call it consulting revenue. Consulting revenue increased by 30,000 pesos because the business had already completed 75% out of the 40,000 pesos. Consulting revenue increased with a corresponding increase in owner's equity. Again, unearned revenue decreased by 30,000 pesos because 75% of the original 40,000 pesos has already been completed. So it's no longer an earned, it's no longer a liability. Consulting revenue increased by 30,000 pesos with a corresponding increase in owner's equity for 30,000 pesos. To journalize the transaction, we debit unearned revenue, 30,000 pesos, because unearned revenue decreased. Then we credit consulting revenue, for 30,000 pesos because consulting revenue increased. Write the description to recognize the 75% completed marketing consulting work. Let us post the debit entry, a debit to unearned revenue 30,000 pesos. In the unearned revenue ledger, we write the date, 31. We write the description to recognize the 75% completed marketing consulting work, posting reference, J2. Under the debit column, we write the amount, 30,000 pesos. In the balance section under the credit column, we write 10,000 pesos. How did we get 10,000 pesos? There's a previous credit balance of 40,000 pesos minus 30,000 pesos debit. So the balance of unearned revenue as of March 31 is a credit balance of 10,000 pesos only. After posting the debit entry, we write the posting reference, 2300, the account code for unearned revenue. Let us post the credit entry. In the consulting revenue ledger, we write the description to recognize the 75% completed marketing consulting work. We write the posting reference, J2. Under the credit column, we write 30,000 pesos. In the balance section under the credit column, we write 173,000 pesos. How did we get this amount? We have a previous credit balance of 143,000 pesos plus another credit for 30,000 pesos. As of March 31, consulting revenue has a credit balance of 173,000 pesos. After posting the credit entry, we write the posting reference, 4100, the account code for consulting revenue. Next adjustment, the business received the internet bill for the month amounting to 999 pesos payable next month. Let us analyze this transaction. Utilities payable increase by 999 pesos. When the business receives the bill, it means it owes the internet provider the amount indicated in the bill because it had already used the service provided by the internet service provider. So utilities payable increase 999 pesos. Utilities expense increase by 999 pesos with a corresponding decrease to owner's equity for the same amount, 999 pesos. Utilities expense increase because the business had already used the internet service provided by the supplier or the internet service provider. Again, utilities payable increase 999 pesos. Utilities expense increase 999 pesos with a corresponding decrease to owner's equity for 999 pesos. To journalize the transaction, we debit utilities expense 999 pesos because utilities expense increase. We credit utilities payable for the same amount, 999 pesos, because utilities payable increase. Write the description, receive the internet bill for the month. Let us post the debit entry. In the utilities expense ledger, we write the description, receive the internet bill for the month. Posting reference, J2. Under the debit column, we write 999 pesos. In the balance section under the debit column, we write 2,299 pesos. How did we get this amount? We have a previous debit balance for 1,300 plus another debit for 999 pesos. As of March 31, utilities expense ledger has a debit balance of 2,299 pesos. After posting the debit entry, we write the posting reference, 5200, the account code for utilities expense. Let us post the credit entry. In the utilities payable ledger, we write the description, receive the internet bill for the month. Posting reference, J2. Under the credit column, we write 999 pesos. In the balance section under the credit column, we write 1,999 pesos. How did we get this amount? There's a previous credit balance, 1,000 pesos, plus 999 pesos credit. As of March 31, utilities payable ledger has a credit balance of 1,999 pesos. After posting the credit entry, we write the posting reference 2200, the account code for utilities payable. Our next adjustment, the desktop computer salvage value is 5,000 pesos. Its useful life is 60 months. We are going to compute the depreciation of the desktop computer. The cost of the computer is 25,000 pesos, less 5,000 salvage value, so the depreciable cost is 20,000 pesos, divided by 60 months. The monthly depreciation of the computer is 333 pesos and 33 centavos. Let us analyze the transaction. Accumulated depreciation of office equipment increased by 333 pesos and 33 centavos. Then why do we have a negative amount? Remember, accumulated depreciation is a contra-asset account. In our analysis, we are using assets, liabilities in owner's equity accounts. So, an increase in accumulated depreciation will decrease assets because it is a contra-asset account. Depreciation expense increased by 333 pesos and 33 centavos. But since in our analysis, we are going to relate the depreciation expense to owner's equity, that is why we have a negative amount, because an increase in depreciation expense will reduce or decrease owner's equity. Again, for this adjustment, accumulated depreciation of office equipment increased by 333 pesos and 33 centavos. Since it is a contra-asset account, it will decrease assets by 333 pesos and 33 centavos. Depreciation expense increase by 333 pesos and 33 centavos. That is why it will decrease owner's equity for the same amount. Let us journalize this transaction. To journalize the transaction, we debit depreciation expense 333 pesos and 33 centavos because depreciation expense increased. We credit accumulated depreciation of office equipment for 333 pesos and 33 centavos because accumulated depreciation of office equipment increased. Description to recognize the depreciation for the month. Let us post the debit entry. In the depreciation expense ledger, we write the date, March 31. We write the description to recognize the depreciation for the month. Posting reference, J2. Under the debit column, we write the amount, 333 pesos and 33 centavos. In the balance section under the debit column, we write the amount, 333 pesos and 33 centavos. After posting the debit entry, we write the posting reference, 5600, the account code for depreciation expense. Let us post the credit entry. A credit to accumulated depreciation of office equipment for 333 pesos and 33 centavos. In the accumulated depreciation office equipment ledger, we write the date, March 31, the description to recognize the depreciation for the month, posting reference J2. Under the credit column, we write 333 pesos and 33 centavos. In the balance section under the credit column, we write the same amount, 333 pesos and 33 centavos. After posting the credit entry, we write the posting reference, 1501, the account code for accumulated depreciation of office equipment. Last adjustment, the tables, chairs, and cabinets have no salvage value. Its useful life is 84 months. We are going to compute the depreciation of the tables, chairs, and cabinets. The cost of these furniture and fixtures is 20,000 pesos. Divided by 84 months, the monthly depreciation is 238 pesos and 10 centavos. Let us analyze the transaction. Again, just like the previous adjustment, we have an increase in accumulated depreciation, furniture and fixtures, by 238 pesos and 10 centavos. But since we are using the accounting equation and we are going to show the relationship of accumulated depreciation to assets, accumulated depreciation is a contra-asset account, we are going to show it as a negative amount. Accumulated depreciation furniture and fixtures increase by 238 pesos and 10 centavos, its effect to assets is a decrease. That's why we have a negative amount. Depreciation expense increased by 238 pesos and 10 centavos. So its effect to owner's equity is a decrease. That is why we are going to show it as a negative amount. Let us journalize this transaction. To journalize the transaction, we're going to debit depreciation expense for 238 pesos and 10 centavos because depreciation expense increased. We credit accumulated depreciation, furniture and fixtures by the same amount because accumulated depreciation increased as well. The description to recognize the depreciation for the month. Let us post the debit entry. In the depreciation expense ledger, we write the description to recognize the depreciation for the month. Posting reference J2. Under the debit column, we write the amount 238 pesos and 10 centavos. In the balance section, under the debit column, we write 571 pesos and 43 centavos. How did we get this amount? We have a previous balance. The previous depreciation has a balance of 333 pesos and 33 centavos plus another debit 238 pesos and 10 centavos. As of March 31, the balance of the depreciation expense ledger account is 571 pesos and 43 centavos. After posting the debit entry, we write the posting reference 5600, the account code for depreciation expense. Let us post the credit entry. In the accumulated depreciation furniture and fixtures ledger, we write the date, March 31, the description to recognize the depreciation for the month. Under the credit column, we write 238 pesos and 10 centavos. In the balance section, under the credit column, we write 238 pesos and 10 centavos. After posting the credit entry, we write the posting reference, 1601, the account code for accumulated depreciation, furniture, and fixtures. This is the trial balance we had prepared before the adjustment. Since we had made some adjustment to some accounts, we need to update this. We are going to prepare another trial balance, and we are going to call it the adjusted trial balance. Again, we are going to refer to the respective ledgers in order to update our adjusted trial balance. Okay, let us refer to the balances of the accounts that we had adjusted. The first account is the office supplies account. Now in the office supplies ledger, it has a debit balance for 200 pesos. We are now going to prepare the adjusted trial balance. Do not forget to write the word adjusted to make it adjusted trial balance to differentiate it from the previous trial balance, the unadjusted one. Again, we are just going to update the balances of the accounts that we had adjusted. There is no need to refer to the ledgers of the accounts that we did not adjust because their balances would be the same. Office supplies, new balance is 200 pesos. So it is a debit balance, so we have to write it under the debit column. Prepaid rent's new balance is a debit to 10,000 pesos. Okay, we write the new balance of the prepaid rent account, 10,000 pesos debit. Accumulated depreciation office equipment account has a credit balance of 333 pesos and 33 centavos. We write the balance of the accumulated depreciation office equipment account under the credit column, 333 pesos and 33 centavos. The balance of the accumulated depreciation furniture and fixtures account is 238 pesos and 10 centavos credit. We write its balance under the credit column, 238 pesos and 10 centavos. The utilities payable ledger has a credit balance of 1,999 pesos. We write its corresponding balance in our adjusted trial balance under the credit column, 1,999 pesos. Unearned revenue has a credit balance of 10,000 pesos. We write its balance. Unearned revenue has a credit balance of 10,000 pesos. Consulting revenue has a credit balance of 173,000 pesos. We write the corresponding balance of the consulting revenue account under the credit column, 173,000 pesos. Utilities expense ledger has a debit balance of 2,299. We write its corresponding balance in our adjusted trial balance, 2,299 pesos debit. Supplies expense has a debit balance of 3,000 pesos. We write its balance under the debit column, 3,000 pesos. Rent expense ledger has a debit balance of 5,000 pesos. We write its corresponding balance in our adjusted trial balance, 5,000 pesos debit. Depreciation expense ledger has a debit balance of 571 pesos and 43 centavos. We write its corresponding amount in our adjusted trial balance, 571 pesos and 43 centavos under the debit column. Okay, we had completed our adjusted trial balance. Total debits is 310,570 pesos and 43 centavos, while the total credit balance is 310,570 pesos and 43 centavos. Again, total debits and total credits in the trial balance, whether it's the unadjusted or the adjusted trial balance, should be equal.